Everyone, here's the official Maui welcome to two very wonderful authors. They have co-wrote this very important current events work here. We have Koohan, Paik, and Mander here. They're going to be discussing this newest work. I just got it from the publisher last week, SuperFerry Chronicles, of course. The other great thing about this book is that it was published right here on Maui. Koa Books, publisher here, Arnie. Thank you very much, Arnie, for your work. Thank you. Based out of Kihei. So this is fantastic that we're able to do this here on Maui. So at this time, I am very pleased to introduce you to Jerry and Koohan, who are now going to have a wonderful discussion, and I'm sure they'll answer some questions about the SuperFerry Chronicles. Mahalo.
Mahalo, Chris. It's wonderful to be here on Maui because we in Kauai consider you guys like our sister island, especially in relation to the SuperFerry struggle. But then as we traveled all around through the other islands, I saw that all of the outer islands are really backing us because we do have different values than Oahu, which is much more industrialized. I want to also recognize Maui's role as what I call the brain trust for the SuperFerry struggle, in that you guys have Isaac Hall, you have Maui Tomorrow, Sierra Club, and the people that laid the groundwork for understanding the military connection, the legal implications, all that stuff. And that's what motivated us hotheads in Kauai to go jump in the harbor, because we needed those facts, and they didn't originate in Kauai. They originated here in Maui. So it's almost like a bow and arrow, yeah? The bow like drew the information, and then we were the arrow that actually stopped the SuperFerry, at least from continuing onto our island. And we hope that we inspire you, and we hope this book also inspires you. So I'd like to go briefly into like how I was personally transformed, and then I'll just do a reading of what it was like to be there at the harbor. When I first found out about the ferry, I thought, great, like who didn't? You know, a ferry to connect the islands, it's like a no-brainer. But the more I found out about it, and especially, it was so fishy. Why was the governor ignoring all of our requests for an EIS, and why would this company come in and refuse any kind of environmental scrutiny? Like, that was so suspicious to begin with. The senators came back in 2006, and I gave my testimony. Hey, if they do the EIS, I'm fine, I love a ferry. That didn't go anywhere. Then Rich Hetner, one of the activists in Kauai, he and Dick Mayer, who's here on Maui, and 5-6 other activists went to Linda Lingle's office. She refused for even an aide to accept this petition of 6,000, which to us, that's 1/10 of our population. If 1/10 of the population of Oahu had signed a petition, that would be 100,000 people. So for our population, it was very significant, and she wouldn't even have an aide accepted. I started to wonder what's going on with the democratic process here in Hawaii when the governor wouldn't even have an aide accept the petition. And then finally, the Supreme Court decision that got overturned. Okay, that was the last straw. But when the Supreme Court decision came, and then SuperFerry sailed anyway, you know, then we just had no choice but jump in. So that was the beginning of the transformation for me. It was like a spiritual transformation. With we just saw so many people, all different colors, ages, shapes, sizes, and it was not, you know, just like the haoles just moved from the mainland. Everybody was at the pier, and if you see it on the YouTubes, you'll see we were all there, all jumping in and saying, you know, really protecting our resources. Okay. After that, you might know about Linda Lingle visiting Kauai, and the purpose of that meeting was she was going to come to Kauai, and tell us. After that, we jumped in the water. She was going to tell us what the fines would be, what the punishment would be for violating the security zone. It would be $10,000 and 10 years, up to 10 years in prison, and up to $10,000. Well, she had no idea who she was dealing with. And I don't know if any of you saw the video on Akaku, but instead the tables turned, and we told her, no, this is our land, we live here, we're going to decide what businesses come here, we're going to decide how they operate, we're going to decide if they're killing whales, we don't want them, if they're bringing in invasive species, we don't want them. And at that time, we had no idea that the SuperFerry was going to stop running. We thought it was coming, and we were just there to protect our land, right? Then it didn't come the next day. They announced, like, SuperFerry's not going to come. Well, we thought maybe it'll come a month from then. Still didn't come. Well, it's been over a year, it still hasn't come. So, how inspirational, yeah? Anyway, I'm gonna read chapter 3 that I wrote. It's called Incident at Na Wili Wili. So let me take you back to one particular beautiful, clear evening in August 2007, August 26, 2007. Very warm, balmy, sun is setting, SuperFerry's on the horizon. The SuperFerry appeared on the horizon, headed straight at us. 1.5 times the length of a football field, 5 stories high, the uninvited menace had burned nearly 6,000 gallons of diesel from Honolulu to Kauai. This was its maiden voyage. The ultimate mission would be to deliver as many as 282 vehicles and 866 passengers daily onto the increasingly crowded and polluted shores of our tiny, still wonderful island of Kauai. Built for maximum speed and with the efficiency of a giant samurai sword, the ship's enormous catamaran blades sliced through ancient calving and birthing grounds for thousands of whales, areas rich with dolphins, monk seals, sea turtles, and other marine life. The ship is also certain to transport an array of invasive species to exquisite and fragile ecosystems already in crisis. No way, we could not let it happen. We would not let it happen. This voyage to Kauai is an act of aggression. We believe that when the Kauai County Council unanimously passed a resolution to require Hawaii SuperFerry Corporation to prepare an environmental impact statement, it would have carried some weight. We believe that when 10% of our island's population signed a petition demanding an EIS, our voices would count for something. And then when state senators arrived to collect testimonies from a room spilling over with citizens demanding EIS first, we believed an impact statement would be required. But the bill never got out of committee. And finally, following a unanimous state Supreme Court ruling to require an EIS, we thought we had won. But Governor Lingle and her Department of Transportation ignored the Supreme Court ruling and green-lighted the SuperFerry to move its launch date forward by several days. It was as though our elected leaders had turned on us. For those of us who still believed in the principles of democracy, it was a nightmare coming to life. So when we saw this gigantic catamaran enter the harbor, specifically sized to transport heavy military vehicles, as we later discovered, racing headlong toward us in flagrant disregard of all our efforts, we were outraged. About 1,500 of us spontaneously gathered at the dock to try once again to make clear what our state officials had refused to hear. We would not allow this luxury monstrosity on our shores until an EIS had been satisfactorily completed. We chanted, sang, and beat drums. We brandished banners and waved tea leaves, the sacred plant that wards off evil while calling in good. In that moment, all the remnants of the old sugar-era manipulations that had pitted race against race, class against class, vanished. Shoulder to shoulder stood Native Hawaiians, Japanese, Filipino, Portuguese, and Chinese American descendants of plantation workers, descendants of American missionaries, and transplants from North America who have been calling Hawaii home for as long as 40 years and as short as 6 months. Lawyers, musicians, small farmers, students, doctors, college professors, politicians, writers, New Age haoles, woodworkers, social workers, nurses, mechanics, architects,